I'm Ali Jafar, and I work at NBC Studios, and I'm the senior manager of content for films. I think it's a strong lineup. I think it shows a commitment to cinema from the region, from Saudi, from the Arab world, and also internationally. If you look at in terms of the star profile, they've got a lot of big names coming in from around the world. So I think it's very encouraging. You could argue it's a bigger, better edition than the first one. And thankfully, obviously, globally now we're coming towards what we hope is the end of the pandemic. So travel is easier. People are slowly getting back to normal life. And I think it's reflective in terms of attendances here, in front of the camera, behind the camera. So no, long may it continue. The Arab world needs, and particularly in the Gulf, given that we have Cairo, we have Marrakesh and Carthage in Tunisia. So the Arab world needs in the Gulf a showcase for this new exciting generation of filmmakers coming out. And I think Red Sea can play that role. This is a cultural industry. So as long as we can, it's normal to have a conversation about bigger things and geopolitical concerns. But I'm a producer and I'm a creative person, and I think most of the people here want to have those creative conversations. And it's always good to engage in dialogue rather than silence. So the more that we can engage each other, the more understanding we can get to. In terms of the stories, we want stories that can engage audiences. I mean, that's the simple, and if there's a single log line, that's it. Stories that people want to go and see, stories that can also redress maybe some of the discourse and that kind of dialogue about the Arab world, but also ultimately stories that can help us connect with audiences in the region, audiences outside the region, and tell great stories. I mean, it sounds a bit obvious, but the fact is there isn't, we want to get comedies, family movies, action movies, big historical dramas, emotional drama. So it's everything, really. But the most important thing is, can we elevate the quality of cinema from this part of the world? Can we give opportunities and a platform to some of the emerging voices from the region? And can we also introduce talent from this region to audiences internationally? And that's both writers and filmmakers and actors and actresses, because there's a wealth of talent, and they haven't necessarily always had the platform that they deserve. But I think we're seeing that now. And so it's an exciting moment to be a part of that process. I'll tell you one title that we're super excited by, and it's one of mine, one of ours rather, called Haujin, which is an adaptation. Again, that's a very authentic story. It's an adaptation of a best-selling Saudi book, Haujin, Hwjn, about a kind of God-fearing, devout jinn who falls in love with a female medical student in Jeddah. So it's very apt for where we are with the Red Sea. The film's shot here, it's set here. So that is a contemporary story set, in Saudi Arabia, written by a Saudi author. It's been adapted with a Saudi cast, and it's also touches on the mythology that's unique to the Arab world in terms of jinn and that folklore, and it also does it in a context that we hope is relatable to young people across the world. So that's one that we are officially launching a teaser of, and we can share that kind of clip with you during the festival, and then next summer that will be our big movie to kind of gear up to. So that's one where we think we have a chance in terms of production values, in terms of excitement and originality, to really, again, change the perception of what Arab cinema is. Because there's tended to be almost two camps. You've had your kind of commercial Egyptian mainstream star-driven comedies, which do great in Egypt and the Arab world, but don't necessarily travel outside. And then you've had your kind of festival movies, which have been European co-productions. They go to Cannes and Berlin and Venice, but they don't necessarily find an audience back in the Arab world. So if we can find a third way, which is elevated, intelligent, entertaining movies from this part of the world that can hopefully make audiences, kind of reach audiences theatrically or on SVOD, but also reach audiences outside, I mean, that's the jackpot for us. I think it shows that anything can be achieved, that when imagination is put to it and backed up by resources and backed up by will, anything can be achieved. So the fact that we're able to make a film of the scale of Desert Warrior, during COVID, the very first of its kind, in a country that was still developing its infrastructure, and the fact that we're also able to attract a film like Kandahar, with a world-class producer like Basil, and a great filmmaker like Rick, and obviously a big star in Jerry, and we're able to kind of bring that to Saudi and shoot here 100%. It's encouraging. What we need to do now is to build on that, though. So obviously, we will learn from those challenges and those experiences that we had on both movies. We hope it gets easier, but certainly we hope that there's more volume. And we're working on everything. I mean, we're in production now on an Arabic language film called The Lamb, that is a film we hope can. It's a family movie, a very sweet kind of modest film, but one that's going to look beautiful, hopefully, and really kind of showcase the beauty here of the landscape and also the kind of emotions of the characters. So again, a contemporary story, one that just should be allowed to kind of rest on its own merits. So it's every type of movie that we want to bring here and shoot here, and I think we can. But it'll take time, and it'll take the support of others too. Specifically with Desert Warrior, it was just such an epic undertaking and such an ambitious undertaking. If you look at the cast, I mean, massive cast, from around the world, and really trying to get someone like Anthony Mackie, a huge star, super charisma, fantastic actor, and then you have, you kind of rest the movie on the shoulders of a super talented Arab British actress, Aisha Hart, and then you have the kind of this incredible depth of kind of Arab acting talent from both from the region but also from the diaspora. For example, Sami Bouajila, who's arguably the best French actor but also French-Tunisian actor working today. To bring all that together and a story that is a true story, the kind of story of Zikar, this kind of epic battle that took place in the 7th century when massively outnumbered Arab tribes stood up to the Sassanid Empire and defeated them. So to be able to take a piece of our history that kids here have grown up with over the past few decades, and then to translate it in a way that is, and treat it with the confidence and the resources that a major Hollywood or kind of Western tentpole movie would be treated. There's something incredibly exciting by that. There's something incredibly exciting by saying, okay, this doesn't need to be a $2 million movie. This can be a film that will be, if you look at Woman King, for example, which is a very reassuring for us that it's the positive reception it's received both critically and commercially, that there is an audience out there for new stories and for surprising stories and unexpected stories from around the world. So that's what we are hopeful for with Desert Warrior is, okay, here's a story which, even though it's a part of our culture and our history, has got those universal themes of freedom and unity and against the odds and kind of fighting against persecution and female empowerment, because our hero is Aisha's character. So for us to put that weighty package on her shoulders and really have her kind of lead it, and with the star power of Anthony, who's just fantastic in every scene he's in, is it's just an exciting experience to be on, especially given that it's the first of its kind. There won't be another Desert Warrior for us, because even if we do something bigger but all the trials and tribulations that we went through, and again making it in the heat of the pandemic, being so close to production and pushing, and because of the world shutting down again. So for sure, it's going to be easier the next time. But I hope those lessons that we've learned will stand us in good stead, and also the experience we've given to one of the surprises of the movie will be this young boy we found, Omar, who is the son of a Bedouin and never acted before, obviously, and he was in Tabuk where we were filming, and we met him on a recce, and he's ended up in the movie, and he's actually one of the stars of the movie now. We hope that he's a super handsome young kid. So it's those kind of surprises that you can't script them, you can't expect them. But when you find a kid like that, same thing with The Lamb. The boy that ended up being cast in The Lamb actually was street casting. He didn't make it to the audition. We'd had the whole day of auditions, and our director was, they're good, but they're not quite right. And then she went for a walk, as just to kind of clear her head, and just saw this boy there. And he stumbled about something. So their eyes met, and literally like a kind of scene out of a movie. So, when you get instances like that, it gives opportunities to these young kids. Now, where they take them, we'll see. Time will tell. But it's really quite exciting to be a part of that, and to feel that there's something burgeoning here. And there is something. Of course, there'll be missteps and there'll be mistakes made, as with every industry and every territory. But there is definitely, I don't know if you feel this, a sense of something happening. and a sense of opportunity for these, especially, it's a very particular generation. It's the age of teenage up till 30s, where there's this engagement with the possibility that they could potentially make their dreams come true if they work hard enough and if they're good enough and they get the opportunities, because there is something happening and they have something to say. And this is what's exciting, is that they have something to say and something that has not been heard. Even locally, I think there's not yet been, up until now, the articulation of their hopes and dreams and aspirations, and whether it's the young hip hop artist in Saudi, or if it's what does the story of a 31-year-old divorcee look like? What's her dating game? You don't associate these kinds of stories with this part of the world. We tend to be wrapped up in politics or wrapped up in despair or some kind of villainy. So the fact that we're not simply headlines on a news story, but actually it's understanding human emotions and human characters and those interactions. God willing, in 5 years' time, 10 years' time, maybe sooner, we can be making The Arabic Parasite, or The Arabic Amorosperos. So that's the dream, and I think the blocks are all there. Now, putting it together is not easy, but the blocks are there. So that's a question of working hard and getting lucky and finding that gem and the story and the filmmaker and putting it together and hope that people want to watch it. I think The Swimmers has been an incredible experience for a number of reasons. It took 6.5 years to get to this point. I started in Swimmers before I even joined NBC. So the whole way through, it's been playing out, and it's had its ups and downs, and it got impacted. We were 5 days from production, and then COVID struck. But I think the importance of Swimmers is if you look at the individuals who've been involved, individuals and also the companies, but it's just been nothing but just excellence. Starting with Eric Fell Network in title. Arguably the best producer on the planet. And this is a story, and Eric makes massive movies, successful movies with massive movie stars. And for him to spark to a story of these 2 Syrian teenagers, and to see the humanity in it, and to see the universality of it, speaks to his own values as a human being. And for the tireless dedication he's had to it through thick and thin, to make sure this movie got made despite the challenges, to make sure this movie got made also at the budget level and with the resources, and with not just the budget level, but also with the care when it comes to releasing it. And Netflix have been an extraordinary partner in it too, to really treat it with the importance and the prominence that it deserves. And that's why we're seeing it now, seems like, God willing, kind of reaching a really wide audience, because it's not being ghettoized or put as a cute little movie about these foreigners. No, it's being treated as a movie about 2 superheroes, and these 2 girls, Yusra and Sarah, they're superheroes. They are normal people but superheroes, because they refuse to allow their circumstances to dictate what they would do, and they're not the only ones. And I think what's so humbling about something like The Swimmers is, especially now, again, to come to social media, the messages that I'm getting, that we're all getting, and it grows day by day by day. So, when Camila Cabello posts about the movie and she has 65 million followers, and my daughters listen to her music anyway, Bam 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 is it's on loop in the house. When she's saying this is one of the most important movies she's ever seen, it's incredible. And then her followers are going to hear about the movie, and if only a tiny fraction of them go and watch it, it's just, that's a way that you can start to change perceptions and really kind of entertain people and educate people. And so, yeah, it's been a very gratifying. But, again, you can look at Sally. Sally really, just massive, tremendous achievement with what she did. Really, she pushed us all, and it's on screen. Jack wrote a beautiful script. Manal and Natalie really were phenomenal performances as the 2 sisters. And there was something special about having 2 sisters playing 2 sisters. And at the heart of it all, obviously, Yusra and Sarah, because it was a massive responsibility that we felt, and I felt personally. The first time I spoke to Yusra, and I told her, I said, listen, my wife's Syrian, so if I mess the story up, she'll kill me before you do. And then she laughed, and that gave her some confidence that this wasn't just another story to me. There was something personal to it. My own parents fled the war in Lebanon when I was 1. and we came to London. So back then it wasn't called, we were called immigrants because we could get on a plane, but it's the same idea of leaving your homeland because of conflict, because of violence, and trying to make a new life for yourself. And then my mum, for example, she was a French educator, so when she came to London, she didn't speak any English. But within 10 years, she'd become an English teacher. So it's those kind of stories of heroism. And for me, those are the true superheroes, because again, they refuse to let circumstances mean you have to be one way or another. It's like, no, we're going to keep fighting every day in the smallest of ways. And if that means I can then educate generations after me, then that for me is real heroism.